welcome to Two Bears, One Bar. I'm Tony Saputo.
I'm Andy Printy.
And with us today, we have Phil Ingram.
He's a bartender. His name's Phil. Again, like we've talked about several times. Several times. This is our third episode. So if you're still watching, thanks for going through the learning process with us. We want to feature boozy personalities. And not just, hey, what's your favorite cocktail? There's, these people in our industry, the food and beverage industry, have insane backgrounds and they come from insane places and different circumstances. And so to highlight more than just what their bar program is doing, as Tony said, on a 2-page spread.
Oh, great.
Oh, thank God. That might... No, you got it. And with us today is Phil Ingram. Cat Cora died today. We can talk about that.
Your Cat Cora?
Not Cat Cora. What's his name? Jazz guy. Cat Cora?
Chick Corea.
Yeah. Damn it. Sorry, a little high. That was close. I'm sorry. That's a little mean.
Hey, this is Two Bears, One Bar. I'm Tony Saputo.
I'm Andy Printy.
And he thinks Chick Corea's name is Cat Corea. Way to honor the dead. Chick Corea is like one of my favorite musicians ever.
I'm part of like jazz shit posting pages and stuff on Facebook. And so like it's the first like right there with, I mean, they're hilarious because people will come in and cry about people making satirical jokes about jazz. And then like it just gets copy pasted for about a 7,500 comments. It's kind of, it's really, it is actually shit posting. The moment somebody makes a bad reference, it's like, what's your favorite song that's not Giant Steps? Or it's, The Lick. Anyway, so yeah, they make fun of that guy a lot. I should have known it offhand.
They make fun of Chick Corea a lot?
Well, not now. Now there's all these heartfelt posts on the page if you look it up. Like, but before, yeah, because it was like Coltrane. It's just the names people know. Sorry. Herbie Hancock gets it a little bit, but not much.
He's just so prolific, though.
Yeah, they're just shitting on good people, and I think that's the point, because they're bulletproof. It's like Mingus, or these guys are great. Yes,
he's kind of tied in with St. Louis as far. Dave Weckl used to hang out in O'Fallon, and I actually played with a kid who his mom's best friend dated Dave Weckl for a while, and in a secret, he secretly wished that his mom hooked up with Dave Weckl and pretended that he was Dave Weckl kid every once in a while.
Late in her age, my grandmother confessed to me that she made love to Porter Wagner's cousin.
I don't know who that is.
Exactly. I don't know who you're talking about either.
My buddy.
These sound like old musicians that,
My buddy banged Jake the Snake's wife.
We changed format. So this is our third episode. It's going well. Again, thanks for being with us this far. It's the learning process as we grow to learn and love each other. Any feedback that you've gotten about, I think our first episode aired on YouTube less than a week ago, on Spotify for a little bit. Did you get any feedback on whether we suck or not yet? It's such a small sample size, I know.
I think we suck, but
all right.
Besides that, everybody's been pretty excited.
Uplifting. All right, yeah, everybody's been positive so far. I don't even know who's listened to it, to be honest with me.
Before we get lost, Phil Ingram's with us today, too.
No, you guys keep going.
It's your show, buddy.
Feel free to jump in,
No, I was going to ask you, what prompted you to start the podcast? Other than, some obvious downtime.
It was a joke I had with Andy, because we were doing Secret Kitchen together, and I said, we should do a podcast and call it Two Bears, One Bar. Nice. And then Andy just, ran to the Una Vida guys, and it just so happened that they wanted to do kind of like a media conglomerate, and so
which is called Scofflaw Times, which is actually the platform we run on, which has got a few other ones.
The Scofflaw is one of my favorite cocktails.
Yeah, Scofflaw. They wanted that odd term for rebels, I suppose, but still booze related in some form. So then we have the sister podcast, Drink Bourbon Wear Lipstick, with Andrea Bolt and Sarah from McGurk's. I don't remember her last name. That's my bad.
Sarah St. Louis.
That sounds like McGurk's.
Sarah St. Louis.
Queen of Jameson and periods.
If you want some good just lady talk, it's exactly what they've got going on.
And seriously, the other part of it too, though, is I experienced this probably the most when I was opening up Benevolent King with Parimba. it's just like you have all these magazines talk to you, and like you have a story to tell, and like you give them like this huge narrative, and like this is what this means to me, you know.
And then
they shut it down to one blurb, and half the time they get it wrong, and you know. So it's also just a platform for that. And there's a lot of other shit that like bartenders are into that just people don't know about, you know. So it's just for me, it was just like being able to give a platform where the personalities that you see every day, it gives them a 3-dimensional platform, you know.
No, that's awesome. I think what you just said, that you know there's a lot of shit that bartenders into. To me, that's like the biggest challenge to being a bartender. Is like people still don't really take the profession seriously.
Right.
And they also like the inverse of that is that they think that that's all you do is drink. So it's like, yeah, you know, you can do all kinds of things and drink.
Right.
So
yeah, not saying it doesn't exist in the culture,
well, you know,
but it's far from the
balance in all
focus
things.
of what's happening. Yeah, absolutely. It's because they put us through it, then they drive us to drink. It's a vicious cycle. No, love the guests.
Which
you're right.
came
like,
first,
really
the trauma or the humor?
That's why we're here. We're poets, really. It's interesting to like also your career in general, like where you started. Like again, you talk about the little capsulated articles. So like in studying you, I have a different perspective than Tony. I learn about these people while they're like at, you know, their position they're at now, and Tony's got to see a lot of you guys come up real time, and so like knows the humble beginnings. But as I look up other articles to kind of get a feel for your background, I was made aware of you by my downstairs neighbor at the time, Kyle Langstrom. Kyle.
Yeah.
It was weird. The top 100 list had just come out last year, and I was part of Bull Rush. It's not like I earned anything in that, but to be in that group was very nice, and to be part of that program. And downstairs, he was, you know, there's a little bit of a party happening, so I asked the neighbor if he wanted to hang out, and I go down there and notice there's a bunch of wine bottles in a milk crate, and I was like, well, that's only one profession that does this. So I asked him, I was like, hey, what's up? And he's like, oh, I work at Vicia. And so it was kind of cool to have somebody downstairs that was in that. And then he made me aware of you, and then it was to go cocktail time. And so, I got very, you know, enamored. And then looking at your articles, they do. They really break down kind of the same elements of Phil. And so there's got to be a lot more to you than, you know, I came from Chicago to wash you, and here's my resume. Like, there's much more going on.
Yeah. I mean, it's been a scandal. Trust me.
It's been a scandal. How dare you?
Yeah, and you know, as long as I've been in it, I think Phil is one of my few friends who's probably been in it longer than I have, and there's somebody I've always just seen as like who is a great bartender, and somebody that, you know, I aspired to be and actually got to be friends with. And
when did I meet you? When I met you, you were at Moonrise, probably.
Layla? Oh yeah, Moonrise.
Yeah, and I was running the Delmar Lounge. Yeah. So I would frequently need an escape.
Yeah.
To get someplace somewhat sane.
Yeah,
so,
and the funny thing too is like actually the Delmar Lounge, like I try to explain that place to people that's not around, but like the Delmar Lounge was like some of my first of like the crazy shit that you see happen in bars and stuff.
Yeah, I mean the Delmar was it was definitely a time and place. Like it was definitely like unique for where it was. It was like right there on that border between the city and the county. So it had the 3 o'clock license, which kind of made it like
it was 3 o'clock license on the county line.
Yeah, so I mean, like it was a destination place, but it was like at a time of night where nobody needed to be destined any place but home.
Yeah.
So we definitely saw a lot of shit.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting though, because I came from the other side of it with like Creepy Crawl and hanging out on Washington Avenue and Tucker back when, I mean, that Days Inn was still there. I mean, like, that's where like 1 or 2 people were getting killed at night downtown. I mean, I guess that's happening now.
Well, I mean,
Comes in waves.
But I mean,
a daily wave.
You know, I was working with people and people were getting stabbed and stuff. Like, you'd be fighting the craziest people down there. But like, you'd go down there, you hang out at Galaxy, and you just see all that crazy shit. But then like Delmar Lounge was like the connecting part of it. So like, if you're on the other side of the city, you'd run into a lot of those same guys.
Yeah, definitely. But, I mean, it was like a microcosm of St. Louis, like, and it was definitely different at different parts of the night.
Yeah, like go through some of the demographic that you deal with. Like, is it your beer and a shot people? Are you still doing cocktails, but only until X time? Is this Atomic Cowboy before Atomic Cowboy?
No, I mean, it was.
It was a big melting pot.
Yeah, it was. Like, so like
during the county line, it's
right down the county line. So like it was definitely like designed to have like a dinner crowd.
Okay.
So I didn't open the place. Some friends of mine opened the place. When it opened, I was actually managing a place down the street, Riddle's Cafe, which is where Three Kings is now.
Yeah.
And Riddle's Cafe was like one of the first farm-to-table restaurants in St. Louis.
Yeah, at the time it was like one of the best restaurants in the city easily. It was fantastic.
There was a...
That's KT's dad that owned it, right?
Andy Ayers and his wife Paula owned Riddle's Cafe. And I started working there just kind of like as a fluke. You know that bookstore that's right there on Delmar? Mm-hmm. I lived above that bookstore, and I was going to Wash U, and...
that's romantic. That's nice.
No, I mean, it was like the idyllic college existence.
Exactly, yeah.
With everything except the class attendance. So I needed to figure out something to do with myself. And a friend of mine had moved from Chicago, moved to St. Louis, and she got a job at a restaurant, Riddle's Cafe. And she was like, why don't you bar back or bus tables or whatever? You just make beer money. And in 6 months, I was managing the place.
So that was way with the sharp minds. You show up and all of a sudden they just really into you doing everybody else's job too. You'd be a great manager.
I was dating the owner's daughter too, so that probably had a little bit.
Sure, that helped.
Like I said,
for
it's been
a while.
KT?
Yeah, I dated KT for like 6 years.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, we dated for a long time.
Just wow.
Yeah, you see how quiet I am still.
Say what?
You see how quiet I am to this day after.
I don't bring it up often. I don't.
No, I love
She's a big
KT.
sweetheart, though. I mean,
I love her. She's still one of my good friends.
Huge personality.
Yeah, definitely.
Bleeding heart, for sure. Great lady.
She's a very talented cook, too. Mm-hmm. But that's kind of where I got my feet wet in restaurants. And honestly, like, I wasn't really thinking of it as a career or anything like that. I kind of... I thought I was making beer money. And then I started dating the owner's daughter. I was like, oh, this is cool. I'll see what this is like. And it was a family-run business, so I kind of started chipping in at the family business or whatever. And I was actually more interested in the kitchen. That was...
reading through some of your stuff, the one kind of like, I think, common thread between all three of us is that I think most of our jobs or our fascination with cocktails came from, we started probably in kitchens more so.
Yeah, I mean, like I spent a lot of time on farms growing up. I mean, this is probably rehashing shit that you've read in an article, but
no, that's the point. We're not doing the article. We're doing the real
So
thing.
I've always been like interested in food, and like, my grandparents had a farm. They didn't have a huge farm. They didn't like raise animals for market or anything like that. But I understood that we were getting eggs from a chicken that was outside. I understood that we were getting greens from the farm that was up the road.
Feels like more than what a lot of the youth is aware of currently. Yeah.
When I was a kid, I thought a bone was like a synthetic thing that you just had, like for meat. Like it was just a carrier for meat.
It's just
Does that make sense?
That's a post-production.
So I was like, you take the bone to the chicken factory and they throw the chicken on it, and then that's how you get your KFC.
We're educated. We're educated.
I was a child.
This is an
I
astrophysics.
still believed in Santa Claus.
No. He's real. This means still.
I was one of the late ones.
Motherfucker's real. Like, yes. Tim Allen's real. Shut up.
But dealing with food is just like a bit more interesting than dealing just with booze. Like, I mean, when you get down to it at the end of the day, we're all trying to make money, right?
Yeah, sure.
You gotta make the most money selling the cheapest booze, and there's just not a whole lot of interest in doing that.
Regardless of what kind of bar you're working in, at the end of the day, everyone's job is to put money in the box.
Exactly. Right. Yeah. And you can have all kind of like great ideas. You can have all kind of like, genius ideas, but if it don't make money, it's just
yeah, that's the problem. It's the age old question. If a great chef opens a restaurant, nobody shows up. Are they still a great chef? It's got several answers.
Well, then that gets into the whole is the customer right question too,
of course.
Which is like because people like a lot of shit, and when I say shit, I mean shit. Well,
it depends on what they're there for. Again, like you've worked in a lot of concepts where you start to get a little bit more elevated.
True.
So your audience does change at that point. So like, going into a sports bar and trying to do a craft bar is probably ill-fated.
Yeah, exactly. You got to read the room, definitely.
I think more what you're maybe getting into is the purpose of food in general and like where it comes from.
Yeah, what are we doing?
Ecosystem around it, and that there should be more purpose in what we do other than just a bottom line.
Exactly. And I think that's true of like pretty much everything in life.
Not to put words in your mouth, I'm not like mansplaining it for you. But no, I'm very passionate about the same thing. I'm sorry, that's why. I'm just like, because it should be about more than that.
It should be like Riddle's Cafe was the first bar I attended, and to this day, Riddle's Cafe is my favorite bar that I've ever attended, and it's because I had I had lots of regulars, and there was just good conversation. Like there were people who like you could sit and talk to literally for some hours.
You were being the genuine bartender.
Yeah. Well, it was just a genuine bar scene. Like I enjoyed Riddles before I was an employee. I thought it was a cool place to hang out.
Gotcha. Yeah.
Like,
you were going there anyway.
Which is kind of like the same thing with the Delmar. Like I enjoyed the Delmar. That's why I wanted to work there. It became something completely different than what I expected to do. I thought I was going to 10 bar like once or twice a week and like continue making beer money. And before I knew it, I was running the place. So
you're a program manager now.
Which it was. I guess it's kind of my calling. Like I fall into those spots pretty easily, which is.
You seem to be a natural leader. You're very creative. You have a no waste program.
I'd argue that I'm actually a mediocre leader because I tend to try to do stuff myself as opposed to like actually being able to successfully transfer information to somebody else and trust that they can do.
Bar manager is different. Bar manager is weird because like you can manage the program and do well with it, like by concept or numbers. Managing people is very different. Schedules, personalities, like being a true manager of a restaurant is very different than a bar manager, I feel like. And I would, terrible, never, anytime they're like, oh, you can be the GM. No, I cannot be a GM. I am the world's worst GM.
I think another thing too is, that's actually a constant struggle that I have running places is like always finding that next guy, so like, the last place I ran, I guess you can consider it Star Bar Midwestern, but like I kept pushing, oh man, we're gonna have to edit this for a second because my brain's fried. I would say something is the road to salvation. Oh, delegation is the road to salvation.
Yeah. And
I would shove that onto like my second guy, and then he'd be like, "Oh man, this is a lot." Be like, "Well, figure it out." You know what I mean? We're making good money. Let's figure out who's the next guy that we're teaching, so you don't have to do so much. But and it was really a self-preservation thing. But worst thing about it is like find those people who are passionate to take on the delegation to do it right, and then once they do, they take their little notebook. And then they just get a bar manager job themselves, like.
Yeah, I mean,
about 7 of you I could name right now. I'm interested in what you're about to say. Yeah.
It's I have that same struggle, whereas like to a certain extent, ideally, what you're trying to do is, at least this is the way I approach it. Like I never take a job thinking I'm going to be there for the rest of my life or anything like that. I mean, I take a job because I'm excited to work with the chef, or I'm excited to work with the staff, or I'm curious. I think I might learn something, and I think I might bring something to the table that they can take from me. But in an ideal situation, I'm kind of training my replacement the entire time. Right? Like I'm not, trying to make anybody think I'm going to be here for 10 years. It's usually like, what are you guys trying to do? This is my idea for what I think we might be able to do. Let's see if we can pull it together and get something together. But then I'm usually trying to find something else to like keep myself excited. I like Vicia because Vicia is really just kind of like a blank page pretty much every day. They didn't really give me any sort of like, I guess this might be true for like all the places I work at. They didn't really give me any sort of like template for what they wanted to do. They were just like, hey, we want a drink menu. But they had an idea, and I walked in knowing
they have a clear concept.
Yeah, like what they were trying to do in terms of like no waste, utilizing their own garden, and working hyper local.
And I am super lucky to live literally a block from this restaurant, and Like I just up Shoto. Man, hands down my favorite. Not kissing ass. It's hands down.
No, I mean it's great.
Town.
I mean, I was working at Niche when I first met Michael and Tara. They had just come back to St. Louis and they were doing pop-ups. And the first pop-up they did was actually at Niche. And I mean, I didn't know anything about them. I didn't know anything about the place that they worked at in New York. But they seemed like genuine people.
Yeah. Can you elaborate on Michael and Tara really quick? Just say who they are really quick.
Yeah, Michael and Tara Galena are the owners of Vicia and also Winslow's Table. Michael is from St. Louis. They met each other in New York. He was working at, a world-renowned restaurant. He's done some pretty phenomenal things himself. Tara was the captain at Blue Hill at Stone Barns, which is Dan Barber's restaurant. And, I've never been there, but just talking to Michael and talking to Tara about it, it's what I would like to work at in a restaurant, where it's like, they grow their own food, they have their own farm, they're making everything pretty much in-house from
you understand where your food's coming from,
yeah,
what's involved with it.
You
it's
can
not
walk out back and see the chicken that laid the egg, and that's there's something to me that just kind of that's what food should be.
Back when I worked for Mark Del Pietro, I worked with Luciano's and then moved with him to the block in Webster Groves originally. And I think the first night we had to go out to that white van and carry in whole hogs. Yeah. And again, you're still seeing it at a pretty processed point. Yeah. But to actually see oh shit, this is really where your food comes from. You should, I believe in the Ron Swanson quote on Parks and Rec, everybody should have to look their food in the eye. They really should. Yeah. Get a respect for what's coming so that there's not, the only reason I think there's a portion issue in America is that they don't really understand what they're talking about.
You see a lot of young farmers carry that way. That's why if you're familiar with Such and Such, they actually name all their animals because they want, pretty much how they explained it to me was like that little bit of hurt, because if you name something, it means something. Yeah. That little bit of hurt you feel whenever
there's a chef's table with Magnus Nielsen.
You slaughter.
And they got the duck. They got the duck guy that he's buying all his ducks from, and he's 70 now, and he is bummed. He's gonna give up the duck business because he has become so attached to them that he won't let them go to restaurants anymore. So you watch the demise of his duck contact in Norway go out because he became so enthralled with the duck. Sorry, I digress.
No, but Dave and Autumn's view from Such and Such, their view of it is just that little bit of hurt is the price you pay because they're giving you their life to sustain ours.
Yeah, I mean,
so
most Americans' response to any sort of guilt is to avoid it. So you see a lot of people who become vegetarians because they don't want to think about killing an animal.
Right.
Or it's well, okay, I can understand that. Or something else you could do is just respect the animal that's given its life to you, and use the whole animal.
And respect your, like I said, that's why I said
respect
get to know your
farmer who raised it.
There are ethical ways to do a lot of things. Veal is a very taboo thing, but to me, there's a way that they do it where it is actually put in a box and they over glorify this process. But then there's a way with dairy cows where you can't do anything with a male dairy cow. So making it veal isn't the worst thing on the planet necessarily. It's more of an eco-friendly thing. Again, within reason, there's balance, as you said.
Balance in all things.
Yes. Get it right.
So you met Michael and Tara.
So I met Michael and Tara at Niche. They were doing pop-ups.
We all did.
Yeah. Sorry. And they were just super genuine people. And you could tell that they one, they knew what they were doing. But two, they also had a great respect for everything that they did from all facets. They were going to source, ethically. They were going to, put together a team that they respected and trusted. And it's easy to work for people like that. I have a hard time working for people who I can't figure out what they're trying to do. And Michael and Tara seemed like they knew exactly what they wanted to do. And, it can be fun working with somebody who's trying to figure out what they're trying to do, but I don't know, maybe I'm too old for that shit. And I'm just what are we doing?
There's a solid percentage of bar people that are bar managers, bar owners. They don't know what they want to do.
They don't. They think you can just open a bar and it's just if you got booze, people will buy it. It's they will, but will they come back?
And also, there's a certain amount of patience. Anyway, yeah.
There's also the idea too. You have an idea of what it's going to be, and then
You have to be,
itself
you got to adjust.
Become something too. So
living, breathing thing. I mean, the bar will tell you what it's going to be. You can have all the plan you want.
Yeah.
Oh, all the people are going to come right here. No, they're not. They're going. That's 6 feet that way.
I think that's exciting right now, because right now we have a chance to rewrite all sorts of rules for what like a bar is, what a restaurant is, what hospitality is, what. I've never been somebody who's like, the customer is always right. And that might have come from like, working primarily in bar settings where you got to be able to tell a customer,
that,
like,
yeah.
no, you are definitely wrong, and you are going home right now.
A general thought on NA, and like, because I get one or two. Like, I get people that say, okay, well, I've got soft drinks if you need soft drinks. And I'm with you. Bartenders, kind of our job is really to be an ambassador of spirits and profile, but at the same time, hospitality.
Yeah.
And that means, adhering to everyone. And I think that the NA, I've had a lot of success with it personally, but I've seen the argument back and forth. So I'm curious about your thoughts.
I personally love NA beverages. I think it's nice. It's the type of challenge that I get excited about, which is like, how can I make something that, people generally just kind of put in a throwaway category?
Yeah.
How can I make that something that you might be excited about? And in a lot of ways, that's where you can make some of the most money. I mean, like NA beverages is like, for me at Vicia, mostly what I'm using is stuff that the kitchen might be throwing away, or stuff that we're growing anyway, or stuff that I use for an infusion that I can then turn into a syrup and use in a soda. So for me, it's almost free money. I mean, I guess not for me personally, but for the restaurant.
It's ownership mentality, I suppose. Yeah. In the same, like I said, I think the most I got into it was at Bull Rush, but I remember going to a different bar after, post quarantine, and somebody's like, "Oh, I recognize that person from this bar," and I'm like, "Yeah," the little ego coming up, and they're like, "You have the best NA cocktails." I'm like, it's a compliment. It's a compliment.
It is.
Like, it is.
It is.
Because again, we're still working with profile. We're still working culinary. But man,
you don't want it to be a compliment.
because I've spent 17 years expecting a different thing, I guess. Like, so again, I'm flexible. It was very new to me. Like, I don't think anyone's ever said that to me.
I think
so. It's a compliment, but at the same time, caught me off guard.
I think the cool thing about it is when you first get into it, there's like a learning curve to it, to where like it's almost like you're starting over, like playing with cocktails again.
Yeah.
Like, because like everything, I think for me originally it was like everything came out too tart. I had to like reconsider how dilution works, because when you shake an alcoholic drink, like, because alcohol doesn't freeze, you get more dilution out of it than you do if you're shaking just normal raw ingredients.
Yeah.
And
you got to be dramatic. Like, that's the fun part, I think, is that they're just tired of a lime on the rim. They, the more you get with garnish or presentation, it's a super cool.
Our cucumbers with ginger beer.
I mean,
we're
not doing that anymore.
I don't know how it was with you guys when you got like your first bartending gig or whatever. My first bartending gig, when somebody was buying an NA cocktail or a soft drink, is because we did live music at Riddles, but we didn't have a cover charge. You had to buy something, otherwise you couldn't have a seat. So if you wanted to sit in a booth and you didn't drink a beer, you say, well, give me a soda. And, it took me a while, but then I realized that, this motherfucker's going to drink this Coke for 3 hours, or I could figure out how to make him something, or I can figure out how to make him something that he's going to slam, and he's going to have to buy another one.
Right.
And all it takes is a little bit of lemon juice.
It's true. I mean, it's not like the effort is huge. Like, you can go as simple or as complex as you really want to do.
Yeah.
But again, the drama, the effort, I think it goes back to, what we're doing as bartenders anyway.
And then also,
so
like, you got to figure out the sweet spot, which is like, will they buy another one?
Hopefully, yeah. Well, I mean,
I can make you a lemonade, or I could make you a lavender lemonade, which is something a little bit different than what you get.
Instagram is either our best friend or worst enemy. Instagram makes him like, oh, I gotta.
Well, this is way before Instagram.
That's worth the $6. Let's do it. But no, I was just always curious about, especially people who've done it for, have watched it go from like, you never get that ask, but now, like you said, there's an audience for it that's beyond the guy that gets a Coke.
Yeah, now it kind of feels like if you want to actually have a cocktail program,
I would say you have to. Well,
you have to have the zero proof.
Are you even trying?
As well?
I think more and more you'll see people with, low proof cocktails as just a regular section on the menu, as opposed to like, something you got to note on the menu as though as a disclaimer. Like, you won't get drunk off this one, man.
Which is super fun, because the more you go low ABV, the less I guess, branding and resonance it has with a lot of people. So you get to get more into education at that point, and exposure anyway, because we're starting to work with vermouths or bitter or
vermouths or sherries or wines that people wouldn't normally think to drink.
Madeira was a really fun one to play with.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's maybe not be saying that right. Madeira.
No, Madeira's good.
I read things. It's hard to.
I mean, for me, like my process is usually. So, like I said earlier, like there's not a whole lot of structure, I would say, and I don't mean to say that as like it's like some pejorative thing. Like I enjoy working without confinement. So, a lot of what I do at Vicia is actually just kind of making stuff and then seeing how it fits together. So I rarely have a cocktail idea when I sit down to make something. I'm gonna see what the kitchen has. I'm gonna see what the garden has. I'm gonna see what I'm in danger of having to throw away. And I'm going to make an infusion.
Yeah, to be fair, your confinement is just your atmosphere that you put yourself in. You know what I'm saying?
True.
So
true.
Which is good because you get a lot of people who are just like, we're going to bring in passion fruit. We're going to bring in.
Yeah. Or even like somebody who's like, we need to have a certain, we need to have an old fashioned, or we need to have a Manhattan riff, or we need to have XYZ.
Right,
it's like we don't do any of that. It's like, we're going to have what we have that we feel like is
what works
ready
with
to
the
serve.
menu. There's a cohesion in the kitchen.
So a lot of what I do is like just kind of trial and error and like experimentation. So I'm given carte blanche to do whatever type of infusion I want to do, and it can be as weird or as mundane as I want it to be. And a lot of times I'm just kind of like stocking up a flavor library, and then at a certain point I look on a shelf and like, well, I got X bottles of this infusion, X number of bottles of this infusion. Let's see how they fit together, and let's see if we can make something out of these things we've already made.
And there's a lot to say about natural ability, and I'm sure between your palate and your experience. And are there anything like, I know that I lean a lot sometimes, like initially the Flavor Bible, which was introduced to me by a pastry chef at Graham and Dunn in Kansas City years ago, ultimately going to Flavor Matrix, like learning what profiles work that maybe I'm not as familiar with. Is there any book, or is there like a reference that you like to look at, or even like a mentor that like really teaches you how to approach flavor outside of, I imagine Mike is incredibly useful.
No, Michael and the kitchen in general, like our executive chef is Aaron Martinez, and like he comes up with some pretty incredible combinations, and it's like easy to leap off what he's doing. It's, in terms of like books, I think the first book that really kind of spoke to me was probably Drinking the Devil's Acre, which is about the San Francisco bar scene.
Okay.
And
via what era? Like talking about like 1800s?
No. It's a fairly recent book.
Okay.
I mean, it's
always been a hub. So
I think probably the 1990s is probably where they focus on.
Nice.
So I mean, it's not ancient. But they were doing stuff which is kind of similar to what I'm doing at Vicia, where they were like, they were more into blending spirits as opposed to making cocktails per se. I mean, for me, it's all about balance. Yeah, balance in all things.
Oh, yes.
And so, I adhere pretty strictly to the classic cocktail structure, which is, sugar, dilution, spirit, and bitters. So if I can balance the spirit itself, which is the base of the cocktail, it makes it that much easier to balance the cocktail itself. And it makes it that much more pliable to using in other things. So, I'm rarely building a cocktail behind the bar. Like, if you come in and order something off our cocktail menu, the base of that cocktail is already blended together. And I use that base in, a half dozen different things that aren't on the menu.
Subject, I won't let you continue, but like the whole idea of batching cocktails and the benefits of that and split base, and it's not out of laziness or, there's certain things.
It's definitely like, there's definitely some efficiency to it.
Yeah, not to mention, sometimes like you want those flavors.
You want them to commingle. You want them to
commingle. You kind of want them to like, it gets a little bit more subtle that way, and the separation's a little bit less obvious,
Yeah.
And at the same time, like with the trial and error thing, like this is what I found with like when I started off, like using the Flavor Bible is like something that is completely like your guide. Like sometimes a little bit of astringency gives it just a little bit more body, and like being able to play with what works and what doesn't work. You know,
Yeah.
like
Just, I mean, keeps you on message. I feel like there's a lot of bartenders, like, I mean, at least in my early days, like, I was kind of the same, where you're throwing darts at a wall and it's like somebody's got this craft cocktail and it's got 7 ingredients and you're really trying to find that common ground with them all, but it's really just something that turned out to work okay.
Yeah.
You know, say like, so there's, you know, there's an evolution in your game.
There's a part
but
of it,
those
though,
are nice. Like it's, go ahead. Sorry, no. And again, you don't want to restrict creation or anything. But
yeah,
geez.
there's a part of it though, because like sometimes if I wanted to flex, like I can make a 7 ingredient cocktail taste like a 7 fucking ingredient cocktail, but
Yeah.
like.
But do you have
I'm
time
like,
to do that on a
James
Saturday
Beard
night?
nominated.
Like, no. Like, do I want to grab 10 bottles or do I want to grab 2? And, like, you know, here we go.
It's like, we're doing this.
Yeah. But you know, the one thing too is like dealing with young bartenders that want to come up, you know, I guess I won't name them yet, but I had one that, you know, I taught him how to bartend. He moved away for a while and he came back and like, he was like, I want to be fucking cocktail king of shit fuck mountain, you know. He's like, look at me go. And then he was
Lucky
like,
for
giving me
you, the
ideas.
position's open.
He was giving me ideas, and for whatever reason, I guess because we were hanging out, like our Instagram feed started becoming normal or normalized and trending each other.
No.
And he would give me an idea, and I would like look through the Instagram feed, and I would just be like, "Are you just seeing shit on Instagram and like that like dudes in New York are doing and telling me we should do that?" And he was just like, "Yeah,
Oh,
it's great. That's what
I
those
know the
guys are doing."
bartender. I know him. I know who it is.
And I was just like, dude, like, stop paying attention to fucking bartenders. Stop reading bar books. I go, you want to
Yeah.
fucking be innovative? For one, you already know half the shit anyway.
Yeah.
And you're just letting people tell you because you want them to do the work instead of critically thinking about what's in front of you and how to piece it together. But more than that, it was like, start paying attention to chefs.
Yeah.
And that was the biggest thing. Like, if you want to be a better bartender, as far as like mixology side of things, like, learn how to fucking cook.
Yeah. Learn the science between, like, how these things work. I mean, everybody has an idea. Some ideas are good, some are bad. And I don't ever want to, like, discourage somebody from bringing an idea to the table.
Of course not.
But you also want to be able to, like,
workshop it.
tell somebody when the idea is not actually an idea, it's a regurgitation. and that's a little different.
And you already live in a world where there's nothing new under the sun anyway.
Exactly.
I think I would say, yeah, you're already going to the golden ratio.
Yeah.
Stupid cocktail codex blowing me up with that mentality, and it's real.
What's the golden ratio?
So golden ratio is just like we know it as the definition of a cocktail, which is spirit, bitters, and sugar. And then, you know, of course, dilution. But then like the codex says, you know, golden ratio is essentially what we're really doing, which is sugar, lime juice, and a spirit. So the sour, the daisy, the margarita.
Right. Yeah.
That's your if you've got it equal parts, you're never going to go wrong because you're finding balance. Where
And there's some
our
truth to that. I mean, and that's
absolutely. I think where the skill and the experience comes in is just like with a good bourbon. The higher you go up in experience, the more subtle the difference is, and that's important to people with palates.
And also, like, when you have a palate and when you've developed like a background and stuff, and this might just be the way I live my life, I don't know. You want to figure out when you can break the rules.
When's it appropriate?
And every rule is there to, like, the rules are there to keep you out of jail, not so much to constrict your life. So,
Kind of an at your own risk.
yeah, you know, and you got to pick your spots. You know, every now and then, you know, you can stir that cocktail that has juice in it, and it's going to work because because it's going to do what you intended to do, as opposed
There's
to
one, you know, with clarified lime juice. That's one that you're not dealing with so much sediment, so a stirred cocktail is not out of the question. It's a little more bright. Anyway, but yeah, no, you're right. Like, I don't ever want to like stifle anybody's creativity because that's where I've made terrible decisions and I brought it up more than once. I tried to clarify an orgeat once with agar, and I'll never bring it up again. Like, that was a terrible idea.
What was the result on that?
Well, not unlike most sci-fi movies. Just I put it in the trash.
Pudding?
Yeah, it was bad. And it didn't smell great. It was cashew. Like, I was already charged with an impossible task. I was living in Springfield, Missouri, home of cashew chicken. Don't know why that's so hard to find here, but anyway, they wanted a cashew chicken cocktail. And so I'm like, that's the worst idea I've ever heard.
Wait, say that again?
Yeah, so I worked at Missouri Spirits, RIP, and they wanted, they do this cashew chicken festival kind of thing, like the way that we do, you know, like toasted raviolis, that's their thing. So they want a cashew chicken cocktail. It's like, I don't know how that works.
What is cashew chicken?
So cashew chicken is a cashew sauce done with a little bit of oyster mushroom It was created by a guy in Springfield, and it's fried chicken with this cashew and oyster mushroom glaze, green onions. It's the best hangover cure you've ever had. Now the problem is, like, if you go through most Chinese restaurants now, you can get cashew chicken, but it's grilled chicken. So I tried to have a conversation on multiple accounts where I was like, look, so what I want you to do is what you do with 90% of the other chicken on the menu. Like, fry it up. And then that stuff you use on the grilled chicken, just give it the old toss. And then I'm in. And nope, it will never, like, they're not breaking on this. I think they know what cashew chicken in Springfield is, and they are against it. So anyway, it's a loved thing there. It's like the only thing they're even known for, other than Jake the Snake Roberts, which you're a fan of. But yeah, so we did a cocktail with it. And I was like, oh, cashew orgeat's a good starting point. I was like, but nobody wants that. And I was like, what if we clarified it? I was like, I can do that.
Jake the cuck was already taken.
Yeah, so
the snake was
again.
the
I will digress, but when you talk about you don't want to stifle creativity, there's a certain amount to be said about knowledge. Maybe a little, don't just wing it. Maybe read a book. Maybe learn what you're really getting to. Because what you do with agar is you're pulling fat solubles. Obviously, you're not just clarifying something. So anyway, it's in my young days. I'm sure we've all made.
But I'm just impressed I didn't stop you.
Just saying.
But fucking up is like the best way to learn.
That's how you do it.
That is how you do it.
That's how you lose your ego. Like, you ain't good at everything. You learn that real quick.
Exactly.
Yeah. Continue on. Sorry.
Well, this
is for Phil here. No, fire away. What you got? What's your biggest fuck up?
Oh, my biggest fuck up?
Yeah.
Is that where we're at?
Yeah. What? Oh,
man, yeah.
I'm trying to think. You're mostly like, oh man, that seemed like a good idea at the time.
Up? Oh, I remember. My biggest fuck up that I can recently remember is Red Bull gave Atomic Cowboy a couple of frozen cocktail machines or whatever.
Yeah,
slushy machines.
I'm into a tropical
and
smoothie.
Just out of pure being cheap and I don't know, just being cheap, being an asshole. I made a drink and I put tequila rose in it and I threw it in the slushy machine.
Oh, delicious strawberry milk,
which just separates and then it looks like. And I was trying to serve people fucking pretty much monkey brains on the fucking patio.
What was that cement mixer? You put the Rose's lime juice into the Baileys.
It was a cement mixer. It was like a pink cement mixer.
This is good. Don't worry about it. It's delicious.
What's a cement mixer? That's Rose's lime juice and
Baileys.
Cream.
Yeah. Or Oh, you need like a swish it in your mouth.
So
yeah.
The best. Try it.
The best thing about it
parts.
is I had a barback who was like, he didn't need the job and he never gave a fuck, but he also just knew more than anybody else. So
sounds like every barback I've ever had.
He
I used to be that barback.
Except for you. You see, you were great, apparently.
I used to be that barback.
Well, the barbacks that are worth a shit, like they just become bartenders or they quit, But he knew how to do everything, but he also just didn't need the job. So he was hilariously almost bad on purpose to see what it would take to get fired sometimes.
I think we've been.
It happens.
I dare you, sir.
He had enough smarts to go behind my back and dump it. And he was like, "I destroyed your drink, Tony. That was disgusting. You know it." And I was like, "Fair game."
What'd you call it?
I didn't call it anything. I called it "drink this dummy." I don't know.
It's nameless.
That's also the mark of a good teacher is knowing when the student has learned a lesson.
He did know more than everybody. He did.
Oh, this guy. This is Atomic. I mean, he knows enough to run Atomic Cowboy by himself.
Wait, is this Matthew?
Who's Matthew?
Townsend?
Oh, no.
Oh.
I mean,
I know he was your boy. He loves you.
He's
great. Good. No,
Matt is.
I went to Midwestern. You weren't there. It was okay. It was before Monday Night Raw. And then Matthew Townsend shows up and saves my whole experience. That guy's dope.
Yeah, Matt's he's a great student.
Yep.
And easily one of the hardest working guys. He's an exception to the case. Somebody that he just wants to be there. He wants to be a rock, and that's his game, man. It's
So how many?
Rare find.
One of the things I do know and love about you is how many people you have trained around town. Who I know we were just talking about how you train somebody and they run off and run their own program.
Well, it happens, but it's also
I mean,
he
it's a
took
compliment.
one of mine. He took one.
Who's that? Justine?
Barina. I don't claim Justine.
Oh, I was given Barina. I never went for Barina.
Anyway, continue, sir. Sorry.
I mean, Barina's great, but you know,
That feels good though, right? To
the coolest thing about it is
see
like
a Padawan become a Jedi.
seeing those people like those people's success is slightly being like your own success. So like,
Yeah.
you know, we just had Nicole Gilbert on, who works for Riegers, and
She's awesome. Yeah.
a long time ago she was like, she wanted to start writing for this bourbon art, I guess, website or something, and she goes, I don't think I can review bourbon, and I was like, everyone is full of shit. I go, you have to remember that everyone is full of shit. You know, a person can only taste 7 things at once, and that's like if you train for it.
Yeah.
And actually, women are more adept to taste more things at once than men are. Men have to actually learn it. Women are
What?
actually born with it. It's true.
And men have to learn to pay attention to what
Just
their
another thing.
environment is telling them.
Add it to the list.
But you know, and I was just like, you have to realize that everyone's full of shit. When you read those wine reviews, like, this guy's not telling you about the wine. This guy's just telling you how fucking cool he thinks he is.
My Up Rocks whiskey reviews are.
But like,
They're not bullshit. Most.
Yeah,
no,
it's
they're
a little
bullshit.
it's a little glamorized.
Definitely a little bullshit.
Yeah.
How else am we get in there?
Yeah, you're in there like every week.
No, I don't know. I don't think Jasper Paul will watch this, but okay. Every week I answer 8 questions. I get 1 every month, and like, which is great. You got to use the platform. Why would I throw it to? Why would?
Yeah.
You know, at one point it's like, how hard do I try at this? Like, I keep trying to be that. Oh, Gonzo 3-sentence writer. That's impossible. That's a hard ask.
But you know, like, a lot of Nicole's successes was just like, because I just pushed her and was like, people are full of shit. Like, you actually know what you're talking about, like, and you care, which is bigger than a lot of the guys that you're looking up to right now. Like, just do it. And
I said in the last podcast, she's probably the best single malt mind in St. Louis, if not, you know, several other states.
I mean, a lot of it is that she's able to like recognize what somebody's trying to do, as opposed to like telling you what she's pissed off that is not. You know what I mean? Like
confidence, but no ego.
Yeah, but also like the way she critiques in a way that is trying to appreciate what the.
Sorry, oh, Roz is pissed.
you got your microphone to cuss me out? Oh, I put it up there for you.
I'm gonna be like, Sarah, I hate it. Don't you glare at me? Don't you?
I'll record a monologue.
We need a third camera just to film the look you just gave me.
It's gonna be like Blind Date. It's just an animated version of like Oliver's face, like scowling at us. Oliver disapproves.
Fuck his 3 drinks. Fuck this guy. Beep beep.
But you know, she writes in a way where she's like, I stopped reading music reviews a long time ago because everybody's a critic and they want to tell you how an album sucks because
I think I only
they don't like this. It's like, well, what is the person trying to do with the album? It's their piece of art, right? So why don't you just tell me if they conveyed what they're trying to do?
Yeah, I think I could only read Pitchfork for like 6 months until I was like,
Yeah,
I got
I
stuck.
had a Spin magazine subscription for a lot of years.
So a lot of things happen with that though. So I was lucky enough to get into Eclipse at the right time when it was like a lot of people who were wanting to learn about mixology, they took Eclipse pretty seriously because it was kind of best of both worlds. It was a volume bar that actually happened to have good drinks at the time.
Yeah.
And
See, the
And so,
Delmar
like-
was the opposite of that, which is why I would come down to like the Delmar was the volume bars, like, and I was making whatever anybody would ask for, and I would do it even at 2:00 on a Saturday. But it's like, at a certain point, it's like, look, man, I had to pull a bartender aside more than once, be like, look, you can't be going back to the kitchen to grab a fucking cinnamon stick right now. It's 2:00 on a Saturday. Get him a rum and coke. He doesn't know.
Get
what
him
he
a
wants.
road. It's like, well, but and again, as long as it's, the tip and the sale makes sense. I used to like going to Harry's in Kansas City because they'll make you a Ramos Gin Fizz at 2:30 in the morning happily. But there's a time when I would have been very appreciative of that.
Yeah,
I
to
don't
be
know
fair,
that
though,
everyone's very appreciative
Harry's
of that
is set up for that. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
no,
They know what they're getting.
The Delmar was not set up for that.
Yeah, and like-
and this was a kid who I love, and you'd probably know him if I told you his name.
Oh, I
but
fucking know.
It'd be like, dude, I love it. I love what you're trying to do. you could have sold 6 rum and cokes in the 3 minutes it took you to
like, okay, yeah, no, that should have been Rumple and McUltras, and I'm sorry. Like,
he wanted cinnamon Rumplemans. We got it right.
Cinnamon.
That's the thing, though. Like, when you're not set up for it, like, your bar is just the bar. It's the tool that you're using, and how you do it is
yeah. If you want to make that shit at 2:00 in the morning, set it up at 6 p.m. You know.
Yeah,
that's also true. I mean,
it was the same thing for me.
It's a certain type of mise en place that happens for bartenders, and that might be it. Be available to your cats if you want to do that stuff.
When I was working at Flamingo Bowl, I mean, you know, on the weekdays, it was slow enough and we had regulars. They knew I was like into some cocktail stuff, you know, like I would try some crazy shit, you know, and I mean, man, one of the best things I ever made there was a fucking cognac julep that was just fucking out of this world.
Dude, I'm with you on this. So I read, but oh my God, what was the freaking name of the book?
Well, let me finish this point, though.
No.
But I mean, like, you know, Flamingo Bowl was Flamingo Bowl before anything else. And for me to, like, push my agenda on it, like, that actually makes me a worse bartender because I'm not really serving my venue, you know? And I mean,
it depends on how hard you do it.
That is a learned
you know, on a Thursday
ability.
night at 6:00, like, and I'm hanging out with Joe Schmo who just wants to learn about some cocktails. Like, that's great. You know, it's a great experience. But at 2 a.m, when we're fucking partying, like, hey man, not tonight, but guess what? This shot of Malort's on me. Let's go. And then, like, you keep going.
First of all, Malort was not around then.
And that's also how you get them. That's how you get them in the building at a different time of day too. It's like, you know, if they know that, you know,
of course.
So the Delmar was, you know, we were talking about how crazy the Delmar was. The Delmar during the evening was kind of like a restaurant. We had jazz music. We had, you know, dinner service. It was interesting working there during the 2000 election, the Gore-Bush election, because like it was very clear that Andy didn't realize how many Republicans he had as customers. And like the business, you know, it took an obvious hit because he was being outspoken about his political beliefs. And I think the thing that I respect most about Andy is that he was bummed out that he lost a little bit of money, but he didn't give a fuck. He was like, you know, I'm like, we can have this conversation, and if they don't want to patronize me because they disagree with me, then okay, that's cool, because I'll certainly take their money if they come back.
I mean,
you know?
and this is a little bit, you know, probably a little on the nose for the branding or the plug, but the whole scofflaw times, you know, what they're doing.
Yeah.
Like, we've had conversations with Zach and Bryce, and they're more of the idea of that, you know, like you said, it's okay to have like very different opinions. We all have different perspectives and where we come from, and nobody's right or wrong. The idea is to get as close to the middle without apathy as possible, I think. And I think that's, you know, a lot of...
And you can't get to the middle if you don't talk to each other. Like, I mean, it's... When I was talking about how I love Riddle, it's because we had, you know, regulars where you could have a long conversation, a conversation and a debate that might go on for, you know, days out of a week.
Right.
It's because people disagreed about shit, you know, but they were able to talk about shit. That election was the first time I started seeing that kind of break down.
So do you agree or disagree with the old bar adage of politics and religion are not allowed as conversation at the bar?
No, I mean, those two things are conversation no matter where you are, because those are the two biggest driving factors in any American's life.
Yeah. So, no, I mean, that's, again, that's why it comes up, because it's the most polarizing.
Let's stop bullshitting about it. Let's talk about it. And we probably won't talk about it until we get a little bit drunk.
Exactly.
And let down some inhibitions and go ahead and tell you, I think you're full of shit. That's cool. Tell me why you think I'm full of shit. And if we can't discuss it,
I wouldn't have got to where I am currently in my stance if it wasn't. I mean, I was in the Marine Corps as an infantryman during the Bush-Gore election. And so my view was clear as far as they were concerned. And so, but then like, you know, open conversation and not being like just stuck in a way that I was like, oh no, this is the only way. Like, I have slowly changed drastically, probably in my opinion, as to where I was as a 19-year-old in the military.
I mean, I think no matter what you're doing, you should be different than what you were at 19?
Hopefully, yeah, hopefully. I know some. I
know some people who are just like.
I mean, I'm definitely
19,
different than what I was at 19.
Depends on where you peak, I guess. There's that old, I don't know what comedian does it, but he does the bit about like you can always tell where a man is peaked because his wardrobe stops right there. So what? 98.
You and I both.
That was it.
Wow.
You're lucky I don't have corduroy pants on.
For those,
That's not the point. That is never the point.
For those who are just listening, Phil dresses way better than we do.
Oh yeah, no, he's handsome as hell.
I don't know.
This is not
on the regular.
He is not Idris Elba. This is Phil Ingram. It's the distinction is subtle.
This is still pretty solidly the Chronic.
It's like, no, you got no pleats. You got no pleats.
That's a timeless outfit.
It's modern Chronic. Chronic 2000 was the first and only album / CD that my parents literally broke physically.
Oh, really?
Oh, I'd had it for a couple of months. Went to Best Buy when it came out.
I think my parents broke 3 copies of Marilyn Manson's Antichrist Superstar.
Hey, it turns out they knew what they were doing.
Yeah.
Did not age well.
They knew the whole time.
We knew. They didn't know.
I still stand by that's really a Trent Reznor record.
Turns out Marilyn doesn't like him age at all. But
I mean, yeah, and Trent Reznor's, it's...
Sorry, what'd you say?
I said, it turns out Marilyn might not like him age at all. So
we don't... It's,
rough.
Yeah, that's a whole discussion. Let's get the drink bourbon wear lipstick ladies on that one. Let's get it. I don't feel qualified,
but it's great to realize kind of like how sensual I think a lot of people actually are, despite the fact that like people automatically are like either turning like all the way to the right or left because
a lot of it is just reaction, you know.
Yeah, you saw it, and that's the thing is like, you know, you start seeing it with like the Gore Bush stuff, but you know, now social media is bigger than it ever has been, and I think people are confusing Twitter and Facebook as real life.
Yeah,
when they don't realize that people are just going, "Oh shit." And then there's like, fucking. It's
supposed to be a caricature. It was supposed to be fun.
Yeah, but like it's the most extreme fucking reaction that you're just able to type out. And I mean, it's just like you jerk off on a keyboard and you go, oh, good. I got it out.
Oh, good. You too. Okay, great.
Well, but it's a reaction as opposed to like something thought out. You know, I mean, it's just pure reaction. Yeah. A lot of people like.
And there's no consequence.
Well, I think the consequences are starting to come about, and people are starting to realize.
People want to call it cancel culture, and it's a little bit more consequence culture than.
No, it's really just in the culture adapting to the technology, right?
Sure. Yeah.
What's weird to me is that famous people get in trouble for shit they say on Twitter. Because like, if Sony came in here and gave me a contract, like the first thing I would do is just wipe everything and be like, "You guys make a Twitter handle for me. You deal with this." Like, I just don't talk to people anymore. You know what I mean? Like if I knew I was going to work for Disney or something, I would just be like, I just don't have I don't have a real voice anymore.
Where are you at on the artist side? Are you at the point where you're like at the right opportunity, there's no such thing as selling out, or is there a voice to be had on the
No, but like
I'm just curious because like as we get older, this is these are decisions.
If you're going to manage a social media account that's going to be in front of like hundreds of thousands or millions of people, like I don't want to do that. Like, I don't want to talk to those people.
But that's also implying that you said yes to the deal.
Yeah.
That's all I was asking.
If Disney's saying, like, here's $2
million.
Like,
hey, Tony Saputo, we need a Pixar thing. You're in it.
Yeah, fly around on like a little.
And you're like, yeah, I'm doing that. I don't, I'm like.
Well, I think whatever you do, you ought to be authentically you. And I don't really know how to not be that. Like, I mean, like.
Yeah, but social media is not that.
I guess that's the question. Are you willing to adjust ever? And I don't think that most of us are willing to adjust much in this room.
No, I don't think I would adjust anything.
I know that's a very vague
it would have to be something kind of meta where I'm like poking fun at the fact that this is not really me endorsing this.
No,
I'm endorsing.
Hopefully,
like,
clearly, what is that? Even Don Cheadle does a lot of that. Clearly a phenomenal, in-depth actor. But like he'll do the comedy bit every time because it's satirical. We know that's not how this guy feels about shit. Like he's very clear. So I can see that. Yeah,
I don't know. I mean, like, I don't think I could ever do anything that I didn't actually feel confident in doing. And
No, that's-
like I can't. I don't know how to fake it. You know, like
That's good. No, I think that's
I've got resting bitch face.
we want to keep the punk rock in bartending. You know, most bartenders are cats that have bucked the system a little bit anyway on their way up. So
I'm one of those people who will literally find himself physically moving away from a conversation that I don't want to participate in, and it is unconscious.
Are you sending me messages now? Are you, that's not very subtle. That's not just so you know, I'm not comfortable with this. No, but I can see. I mean, you know, there have been programs that initially seemed great as a fit, and then over time you start to learn that, you know, maybe visions at the higher level are different than the visions you may have been sold on. And so you know, I've been like the angry, emotional one where I'm just like, good, I'll burn it all down. Like I don't, you know, but at the same time, it's as I get older, I start to realize like these are the people that own the bars. It's their vision. And the larger skill there is to adapt. I don't know if that means selling out. And again, I'm not saying that's what you're saying, but this is why I thought it was an interesting question. Is because there's such a weird gray area there.
There is. I mean, I think
what's evolution and what's selling out.
Well, I mean, selling out is, to me, when you are doing something that you wouldn't actually tell somebody you were doing. Like, if I'm doing a menu that's just full of old-fashioned riffs, and I'm like, you know, I got to come up with 6 different.
Look, I'm sitting right here.
Like, you know, I'm not really telling somebody I'm doing that. You know, like
no, you're doing it to make money.
Doing it to make money, and you know that's probably going to last for about a month before I'm like, yeah, I can't.
I've had weird Irish bar programs.
I don't know
like
how to
that.
do. I don't know how to be unmotivated.
Like you said, inauthentic. Like I mean, yeah, I get that. Absolutely.
Yeah, it was kind of funny. Whenever I took over Atomic, I'll throw him out. You know Sasha? Yeah. He came in, wonderful regular that he is. But he was like, man, I get it. Like, he went for the money. Like, it makes sense. And he was like calling me a sellout. And I was just like, do you know what it takes to run this fucking bar?
First of all,
like,
if this is the Sasha, I think it is. That guy, he is a C player, like to a program as best as I can get. Like he's never like, it's hard to take charge. I know bartenders like that. They're great at their job. And knows what he's talking about on most fronts.
Yeah.
But to actually have to take over a program and to manage is a very different skill than coming up with a great cocktail or being able to discuss flavor.
Yeah, I mean, being able to write a recipe is not the same thing as running
and to market it. You're making people
or
pay $15 to $16 for something. Like that's a source of pride for me. The sense that there are people. I've worked for programs where I'm like, wow,
you know, making them
guys
pay
are
that
actually
price,
gonna do
or
this.
if you had a place like Atomic, convincing them that waiting, 10 minutes to get it in the middle of a Saturday night is still worth it.
Right.
And there is, you have to pay respect to that. You have to.
Well, there's a lot to be said for just operations in general, and like that's kind of like a big part of it.
Do you understand logistics? It's not just like we were talking about how learning how flavors work together opens up this whole different facet of mixology. I don't necessarily like that word, but
I hate it.
And it does, but logistics is what it all comes down to. Like at the end of the day, like we were saying earlier, you're trying to make money.
Minimum
like
2-page book.
Yeah. And this, this kind of comes back to like what you were saying with Delmar, because you and I actually had a pretty similar facet as far as that goes. Because you learn how to keep the most people happy
in the immediate
fastest as possible. Yeah. Because just pure human science is you're not going to keep everybody happy.
True.
So how do you keep like
the majority of them?
Yeah.
How do you get them to come back?
Yeah.
Like, how do you toe that line between, man, that place was so busy I couldn't even get a drink, but when I got a drink, it was pretty.
It was
good.
right on.
Yeah.
It wasn't waiting any longer than anyone else.
Like my wait was when I got my wait
up.
was in the line, not when I got to the bartender. When I got to the bartender, he put it out.
Between waiting and you're seeing the staff like be efficient and moving around.
Yeah.
And then like,
and that's part of the show.
I've had
that's peak.
I've had experiences
that's when
too,
you're like, you see, you're
we're
all
like
dancing.
It might have been like 1 or 2 deep, but like I'm watching a girl like check her text messages while I'm like waiting for a drink. Like,
oh man, don't get me started.
Face slapping stuff. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then, like,
other people's faces.
Months later, I get DMs being like, "Hey, will you give me a job.
Yeah.
Am I a joke to you?
I do not entertain.
No, because again, like you said, like even when they're sometimes there are people that they just have a skewed version of what your job and what your profession and the work you put in is. And so they get to that, point where they get to order the cocktail and you are just.
Well, a lot of young bartenders,
them,
especially
the
the first stage they might command is being behind the bar, right? That's the first time they might be in a position where people are looking at them and the attention is focused on them. And that's an ego stroke. And it
was for all of us, I think.
Yeah,
too.
I mean, and
weird.
it's an immediate ego stroke because somebody's there willing to give you money and watch you work.
I remember like getting my first couple shifts, at Foo Bar, or 2 Cents Plain and like just goofy dive bars,
Yeah.
and like just being like, yeah, tonight I'm the guy. Like this is cool.
Yeah, like when you're young, the first shift where somebody knows your name feels pretty good, and then that third one is like, fuck you.
No,
Call me Tony one more time. You see all these people around you.
It's like, and it's always like 7 Patron shots for a $3 shot with that guy.
Yeah,
it's like,
but
but that's when you start telling people your name's Jeffrey, just so some asshole at the bar just yelling out Jeffrey and no one's responding.
And I'm so fucking jaded because I've got a roommate, Cameron, who recently I worked at Mission Taco and I looked at this guy get overlooked day after day. He's the workhorse. And I think I started as one of the workhorses. So you're not really the noticeable personality. You're just the guy that can handle the well or not stress out during busy times.
That's my favorite spot.
That's how I came up. The personality was forced far later. But he was really good. So when Sanctuaria's new owners were looking for a bartender, I tried to use what tiny amount of influence I had. I was like, hey, you should take this guy on. Like he's really, really good. And I remember him coming to me 3 weeks ago and he was just like, dude, like this guy comes in and he's like, oh, you're Cam, right? And I'm like, oh, that's the story. I was like, but God, how fucking jaded am I? Like, I mean, of course he's fucking stoked about that. Like that's the first time he's had a personality and a cocktail list and he's watching people in a somewhat large market respond to that. And it's huge. That's probably 90% of why we do it.
Definitely. I mean, I wouldn't say 90%. I mean,
that may have been over. I was emotional.
But I mean, the first time you put a drink on a menu, the first time you put out a full menu, those are definitely like things that you feel good when people respond to it.
I mean, one of the first things I did at Sanctuary was any bartender that was behind the bar with me, their name was on that menu with me. Like, I like that about taste. Like, you get in there and it's like, here are our bartenders. It's like, hell yeah, because if nothing else, if they're not, if anything else is going wrong, you're at least getting credit for the work that you're doing.
Yeah.
You don't feel overshadowed.
Exactly. You get a little bit of ownership. You stay motivated. You feel like you are being, respected.
And that's a new generation thing, I think, too. Like, I think guys our age are pushing that a lot more than like the people that trained us. That was this is my spotlight. Shut up. You'll get your day one day. And I think ours is not to say we're soft, but like credit where credit's due kind of thing. We want to.
No, I don't think that's soft. I don't think that's soft. I think that's evolution. Like we grew up, wishing people understood the work we did.
I mean, I appreciate it. I wouldn't be the bartender I am without the hazing I received. But there's a bigger prize there by not doing that.
There's also another part of it though too, and I think it comes into like what we were saying with like now you train up people and then they just go, oh well, now I'm a bar manager here and they jet off. But like in the era that like Phil and I came up, like I was working for Joe Edwards for 7 years, and it used to be pretty normal there that you would be a barback for a year and a half to 2 years before you got like a Sunday day shift bartending,
That was my exact experience in Virginia. Yeah.
My experience was kind of the opposite, but
you were also
because you knew everything.
Well, I didn't know anything. I didn't know anything actually, but it was just circumstance. But I also like from not having that experience, that's why I kind of seek out the jobs that I seek out, which is like, I want to go somewhere where I'm going to learn. Like
right.
I don't want to be somewhere where I'm like the smartest person in the room. And that's in like any situation.
We're X amount of minutes into this podcast and I don't think anyone's gotten that idea from you. You're very humble in your approach, but let it not be forgotten. You work at what is for all intents and purposes the number one restaurant in the city.
Yeah, but him and I have both worked for people who do think that they're the smartest person in the room. And You learn a shit ton from them, though.
You do. I mean, like,
You also learn not what to do or what not to do.
well, I mean, failure is the best teacher, right? So you observe something
Especially when
that
it's
is
other
not
people's
working the way
failures.
you think it might work, and yeah, you just learn from it. Like,
But I do appreciate, like I said, I work for Mark Del Pietro, who is, volatile at best. Great guy to learn from, terrible guy to work for. And I don't mind saying that, like, great guy. But I learned a lot of what I learned about bartending from him, telling me that profiles exist, as they do in the kitchen, out in the bar, and yada, yada, yada. But I mean, it's a different come up at that point. Like the hazing, sorry if I'm.
No, you spoke worse of him than you did of Pata.
Oh, yeah, I would. My experience with Pata is very, very different. I got him as he was being put out to pasture, so to speak. Like, he's done, it's over, and he was very friendly with me and my budget. And I did those freaking 80 hours for stupid amount of money that wasn't real. Like, so I get it, but it was also, to me, I was driven at the time. Like, I came here. This was my last ditch effort to really try to make a name, or at least have a voice in this industry. So I was working hard to like restore a romanticized era that I know more about now than I ever did. Sorry, I'll shut up about that.
No, it's fine.
But no, I mean, like I said, Del Pietro, at the same time, I mean, he drove me to be more creative, yada, yada, yada. But again, I'm more of our new school approach, which is it's vocational, it's handed down, and hopefully somebody like Joe Conroy that works for me, he's 20 something.
Yeah.
Hopefully he can take the information that myself and a lot of bartenders he follows to heart, and he becomes this other thing by the time he's my age, which,
that's what you hope for, is that, they take something from you, and then eventually you can take something from them, because there's a dialogue going on.
Of course. I mean, yeah, it's uncomfortable, but I take it every time. That Joe comes up with genius things, and I'm just like, God, am I even good at this job? He's just so good at it. But it's, it's cohesive. I think people feed off each other. So.
I think so. And if there's not a back and forth, if there's not a dialogue, for me, then it's time to move on. Like, if you don't, I'm not going to stay somewhere where I don't think that I'm contributing something, and I'm not going to stay somewhere where I don't think I'm learning something.
So do you see yourself, maybe this is on the spot, we can take it out in post. Do you see yourself at Vicia for quite a while?
I mean, I think I'll continue working with Michael and Tara, like, indefinitely. I don't know that I'm going to continue, like, in the current role, like, at a certain point. And actually, this is something I've been thinking about a lot during this whole COVID era. When I don't have to deal with a service, is how long do I want to deal with a service every night? There's definitely a different skill in dealing with people than there is in dealing with blending spirits. You know what I mean? It's a lot easier to batch cocktails than it is to
what do you mean?
Take an order.
No.
There's also a part of it, though, like, you kind of evolve to a certain point where you're like, I should be getting paid for my brain more than my sweat. You know what I mean?
Definitely.
And there's a balance to it, and it's a hard sell for a lot of restaurant owners, especially like.
Well, and that's why that's when you start exploring different opportunities and things, right. Like, working with a distillery maybe, and like consulting work, writing menus for people.
Yeah, it's doing pop-ups now, which is Chow Bon. Like, I after one of the regional guys, he's like, oh, pretty decent at this job. I'm like, and they don't know anything probably about the bar community, period. Not that I'm blasting myself, but like, yeah, I'm decent at my job at least. And he's like, oh, well, I'm going to have you fix my other bars in the county. And like, I think 10 years ago, I'd have been like, yeah, let's go do some more programs. And I my first question now is, do they need fixed? Like, if I go to the county and they just want Crown and Cokes and I create this cocktail, do you have people there that want to do it? Do you have, it's again, like,
but there's also
an expectation, like, from some of the people
for, like, someone who comes from this. I mean, like, there's a place for being able to do, like, working on the bell curve and like doing the middle of the road stuff and just doing it better.
Yeah, because through experience, you've learned
exactly
who responds to what.
Yeah.
And that is, like I said, it's very much a compliment. I don't want to, sorry, I maybe come off like I was shitting on that, but I'm not. I think at one point, like you said, it's
I mean, like,
pay for your mind, yeah, but don't make me do most of the legwork either.
there was,
Like, I mean, some of the labor I enjoy. Like, I enjoy working in the garden. I enjoy, growing shit. That's something that, I've never really been able to do in any
it's
other.
also like,
I think
it's personally
define
fulfilling
labor
for me.
because that sounds a super. Yeah,
I think it's also
labor.
just kind of
do what you love
It's a
and you never
hobby.
work,
Yeah,
it's a human thing to like actually like just enjoying that. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, I mean, there's something like definitely fulfilling to be like, I watched this mint grow, and then I put it into some booze and made something. And then I took that and made something else.
and then I preserved the mint.
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
Nice. Circle of life. No, again, like you guys have, again, I had experience with it in Bull Rush with the no waste aspect, but you guys, I mean, you yourself, I mean, you run that program essentially. So who was it because of concept you got into that? Or is this something like, as you said, you've, in previous articles, as we have spoke, you've come from what we call food deserts and you grew up on your grandparents' farm. You've seen real food. Like, was this something that's just always part of your tapestry anyway? Tapestry.
I mean, I guess like, so when you see that dichotomy between, I was spending my summers on a farm. So I had a understanding of food and, watching the food grow and watching food be produced and then go out somewhere. And you wonder where that food goes because you go back to, Southside Chicago and you grow up in a food desert. It's like, well, I know food's out there, but it's not in the grocery store.
It's not.
So what's going on with it? Like,
no,
like, is it, what is it? It's obviously a commodity because it's being valued in such a way that it's being kept
withheld from somebody. Yeah.
So that was what kind of just sparked the general interest. I don't think I really got into understanding, food as a commodity until I was in high school and I started working at the Mercantile Exchange, which is, essentially a stock exchange, but they're trading commodities futures. So you are watching things like, pork futures and corn futures and things like that. And you're like, man, this is...
So you were keying in on the agriculture long before.
Yeah,
because there's obviously other things going on.
Yeah. Definitely. Like, so it was just kind of interesting to watch that dynamic. And there's
economy to agriculture. Hell yeah, that's a weird perspective.
It's definitely weird, especially
what point does it feel like less? Because when people say agriculture, you get like the social studies, like picture in mind of like a farmer in the field or dirt.
Our most
John Deere
export and imports.
But like
so I was
things you're
juxtaposing
talking
like
about is like
I was
when I did
juxtaposing
data
like
entry for-
watching that in real life, like watching somebody farm corn,
right,
throughout the summer.
and then
Throughout
seeing
my
the numbers
childhood.
behind
And then
it,
when I was in
too.
high school, I started working at a commodities exchange and you start seeing people on a trading floor who are, trading something very
Did you
abstract.
just riding the train into Chicago, getting on a trading floor in high school?
So I grew up on the south side of Chicago. So, I mean, I grew up in the city and my father worked at the Mercantile Exchange.
Which is, that's White Sox territory, yes?
It is. I'm a Cubs fan.
Okay, heard.
We
won't hold it against you.
My
I've
grandma
never
was a
forgiven
Cubs
the
fan,
White
man.
Sox for trading Carlton Fisk.
I know cool
I've-
Cubs
I've-
fans.
So,
When Frank Thomas came out of high school,